Sorry.
Okay, move on. It's 4 o'clock. Time to call the Planning Commission order. Welcome everyone here today. Looks like we've got a good crowd. Thanks for bringing them in. The first item on our agenda is the approval on May 24, 2023, regular call to Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Move approved. Second.
Motion approved, second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Okay, on the new business, first one is a zone request for Stock Metcalf property located or identified as tax map 023 North Group Q, parcel 009.01. This is Mr. Metcalf here.
Connor, go ahead.
All right, so this property is located off of Carolina Avenue. Right now is zoned R1A. He is requesting it to be zoned to R2. The lot's vacant right now. He's wanting to put a duplex in. So the way the ordinance goes, R1, you cannot have a duplex in it because it's multifamily. He's requesting to put a duplex in there. I'm assuming he'll have to have a drawing put up eventually, but he's right now just requesting a rezone. I will leave it up to the discussion of the planning commission.
The only thing that I have here, and we talked a little bit about it, he put 133 Yarman Place when it's actually going to Carolina Avenue. But he has the tax map, the group number, and the parcel number correct. So would you explain the legalities of where they?
So I had, when I was making the agenda, I do have the tax map identified correctly, but whenever I was sending in the information for the agenda, I looked at his zoning request and accidentally put his owner address. But the property in question that we are looking at is identified on the agenda as a correct tax map identification, so we can move forward with the vote.
I would just like to, when we do a rezoning, before we've not asked for finalized plans, and that's something I would like to have submitted, because on the back end, we need to know that the safety is where it needs to be in those plans and that they're not varied from. Because when we get a site plan, that's not a final plan, that's just what it should look like. And we've had projects that have changed and end up costing us as a town on the back end.
Two things on that note. So moving on that note, you can have a preliminary site plan. It's not required by law for a rezone. Now you can hold the rezone contingent final, but that way you could just do, that way Ryan could just hold the building permit until final site plans are submitted. It's tough with that because of with a rezone, spending money on a site plan is very expensive.
Yes.
And so I would say that probably a good idea moving forward, I think it's good probably for everyone, is to have a preliminary site plan ready for when you're requesting a rezone, but the building permit will just be held until the final site plan is submitted. I would say it's probably the best idea.
Right.
Because then I think you would miss out on a lot of projects because getting through the rezone first. Yeah.
Right.
So I would say, preliminary site plan, you can, maybe it's not required, but it would be good, but then Ryan can hold building permit approval for final site plans submitted.
Based off of doing the research around surrounding property values, talking to Mr. Metcalf, he was supposed to bring a picture to show you guys. Hopefully he'll show up before we get done. You guys can kind of see it. As far as my recommendation would be, R1, R2 is really not going to matter right there where that's at. The picture that he sent me of the duplex is very nice, like duplex. So I would have no problem recommending it to you guys
Yeah, and as far as zoning goes, I agree with Ryan. The difference between R1 and R1A and R2, the only difference is that the allowance of multifamily. The square footage isn't going to make a difference there either. So I would recommend approval, seeing that Ryan sees and shows you guys the schematics for it. I don't see a problem with it.
That is,
I'll make a motion to approve this though.
motion to approve, make that request, rezone.
Second.
Second, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sign, motion carries. Okay. Next item on our agenda is zone request for Urban Utilities Training Center, property located at 202 South Elm Avenue, identified as tax map 023 and Group L, parcel 019.00. Mr. Brown, this is. Tell us a little bit about it.
Mr. Chairman, I think y'all have a copy of our request, and I've got a bigger plan. I think y'all have a copy of it, but you described the property, but I think we all know it as the Elms. And that property's been vacant for some time, and we worked through several conceptual ideas to renovate that property and put it back to use without raising the building and replacing it. But after a lot of thought, consideration, and some engineering estimates, we decided the best thing for the future is to remove the building, put something new back in its place. So that's what we're proposing, and we're requesting rezone based on what we're planning to do with it.
To kind of piggyback on what he was saying, so I know for their rezone request, the problem is setbacks. B4 has setbacks and I did drive by the piece of property. It's a small piece of property. The setbacks probably would come into play there. The rezone to B3 is to get around those setbacks because B3 does not have building setbacks. So that's the reason for the rezone request. Just in my personal opinion, you've got something that's been vacant there for a long time. This is going to bring, it's going to bring jobs, and I don't see a reason not let them have the reason, because it's going to renovate the building. Ryan, what do you think?
I've got to talk to Mr. Brown at depth. I've got to talk to Mr. Wood. I've talked to most of you guys in depth on this. Lee, all those guys are very familiar with how hard it is to get something rezoned, the costs associated with it. They have been very upfront. If we don't rezone it, they don't really want to go through with it. They also know that whatever decision that you guys make, and then it goes before the BMA on the first reading, whether it passes or not, everything is contingent on that last public hearing meeting where the actual public is to come in and say what they think. What I think it looks better than what's there. I think the idea is good. I don't see any reason why I would have a problem going from B4 to B3. A lot of downtown already sits in B3. The downtown overlay is B3. It is a rock's throw from B3.
Is it part of the overlay or is it new?
Overlay ends in the middle of Elm Street. So in essence,
Almost. Almost.
it's one of those things that the only reason, the principal difference for Lee and his guys, B3, B4, correct me if I'm wrong here, Lee, one of them allowed you all to have residents on the lower floor where the other one didn't, so we're kind of trading the residents for no setbacks what they're in essence doing, correct?
I think that's correct.
Is that what we talked about, Mitch?
It is.
Okay. We spent a couple hours in there going over this one day, and guys, I think it's a good idea. Ian, I have no vote, I have no sway in this one. This one's up to you all. I'm good with it.
You talk about turn
turning one house down, you're talking about the baby house too.
We're not tearing
Yeah.
we're not tearing the house down, they're only gonna tear the elms down right now. The house on the back side is what's on the very top there,
Yeah, okay.
and
Yeah,
that's not gonna be torn down. They don't,
that's our house and garage.
Okay.
And that's the property line, and so that won't be touched.
I got you, got you.
It's just, though, the pink right here is the old outline thing.
Okay.
And this would be the new building.
I want to talk about setbacks then.
B4, yeah, so B4 where they're in currently does have building setbacks. I will,
On the B3, you don't have a setback, is that what you're saying? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay,
If
There's
you-
some low encroachments just in a couple of places,
okay.
and that gets around that plus parking requirements.
if you leave it before, it's gonna be really hard to do the setbacks.
I think if I'm envisioning this right, if you look at the Erwin utilities and the way that it is against the street now, it would be similar to that, right?
Very simple.
Okay. So it would look the same kind of as Erwin utilities there on the right side,
That's
would be on that side.
and I will add one note, do you guys still plan on putting the buffer on the backside still? Where they're
Yeah,
planning
it's
to-
shown on those drawings.
Okay, just make sure.
That were sent out.
So I will say that's a nice addition is where it currently, where the building currently is, if this were to happen, they will have a nice buffer on the backside of the residential area.
Does that leave the sidewalks in place? It does, yes, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
His request is go from B4 to B3.
Mhm.
Correct. I'll make a motion, go from 4 to 3.
That was from 4 to 3.
Yes.
Second, 4, 2, 3, yeah.
Second.
Motion by Clyde, second by Glenn, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay.
Scott, we need to talk to you afterwards. Everything's,
right here? Okay, next item, our agenda is preliminary site plan for detailed woods engineering project located 600 Elm Street, identified as tax map 023, credit bureau B, item 001.00. That's the old, got a discussion on this.
So, this is where the old elementary school is, next to the fire department. I think the plan is to turn them into apartments, and then on the right up above the circle, the roundabout, is have three single family homes, am I correct? Yes, okay. The problem that we're running into here is, I'm assuming since the school was built, the zoning codes have changed, and it's in an R2, the maximum height is gonna be exceeded by the new plans. So he's not building a new building, the school is too tall. The maximum height in R2 is 35 feet for a building. I think the building, except for from the ground level to the top floor is what, 45?
what was it we decided?
48 for the new.
48.
So I talked to Ryan, and this is something that we'll have to probably slowly move through. I think a solution, I think that would probably benefit, I think everybody probably, is us looking at the ordinance, and right where you would have the maximum height for R2, under that height, I would have maybe look at having an asterisk next to it. And for certain multifamily dwellings with a certain amount of families in place, that limit can be what the planning commission sees fit. So for those types of buildings, the planning commission could approve, 45 feet, 50 feet, 55 feet, depending on what you guys think is best for the town. Now we will have to move through that as an ordinance, so we can't decide that today. But I think starting that discussion may or may not be beneficial to you guys. That's my piece for that.
Can I interject something on that one? If you don't want to go through changing everything, you can ask for a variance on this particular building. It's an existing condition.
So the problem with asking for a variance is in the ordinance, there is no exception for height. We cannot grant special exception or variances for height. That's why I was proposing having an asterisk in specific circumstances.
And let the BOA then give us approval to continue on.
So we would have to make a zoning amendment for the height in R2 to be, and we'd have to come up with a specific amount, but a specific height for specific types of buildings. So it'd have to be, if it housed, more than, just off the top of my head, more than 8 or 9 families, then it would meet that requirement of being able to exceed the 35-foot height. Now that's something we'd have to discuss further, but just as an example.
Todd Wood, 1804 Dale Drive, Johnson City. What does your ordinance say about legal non-conforming uses?
So once it changes uses, it is no longer non-conforming, and that's pretty much across the board in all ordinances and in Tennessee. So that's the problem, is it's changing uses. And then not only that, whenever it also comes to non-conforming, whenever a certain building is over 50% of damage and has to be rebuilt, it is also no longer conforming. And we'll have to come up to code.
So just, I'm not sure how to say this, but so it was a school. The school was there before the zoning was in place, and the building is sitting there. So it was already that height.
Mm-hmm.
The town creates the zone, puts it in R2. Essentially, you made it not buildable. It seems like there's got to be another way around this besides going through the ordinance procedure, because that's going to take a little while to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see one. Not unless it breaks the ordinance as it is.
I don't know that the ordinance procedure is gonna take you long as long as you think it's gonna take. Just for the simple fact, all Connor has to do is write something up. We put it before the BMA. Guys, we wanna try to make this work, because this is not the only time we're gonna be crossing this bridge. If anything happens with the CSX building, we may have to cross this bridge yet one more time. So our plan is to go ahead and fix it. So when Connor and I had this discussion, we've already started down the road on how to fix it. We just have to have a BMA meeting to get to that point. So once he gets it typed up, it may be faster to go through the BMA than work on trying to change.
Doesn't it have to come back here?
It will have to come back for the
It will have to come back, but we're not having another planning commission until the last week of July, and we'll have 2 BMA meetings between now and then. So we actually have a shot to fix the planning portion of it.
So it's not, so I think, I could be wrong on this. Yeah, it's got to come here before it goes to the second BMA, so that means it's.
All we're gonna do is take care of the ordinance portion first, where it gives the planning commission the authority to take it over 35 feet.
So let me ask you, was that one approved before for condominiums? Is it changing? Because if I remember correctly, when it was sold, that was sold for condominium use, correct? Are you not the owner?
No.
I'm the engineer.
Lee Naylor is the owner. Mr. Naylor
And he's
is out
not
of
here?
Atlanta, correct, Gail?
Okay, so he's not here to speak to it because he's left it empty for at least, what, 3 years?
Yeah.
So I don't know why a couple of months would put that much of a dent in the time frame.
I'm gonna speak a little bit to that, because I know a little bit about that. We do have a fire marshal, Joseph Strong, that is kind of chomping at the bit
Gotcha.
for
Makes
this to get
sense.
done.
I didn't understand the rush.
Miss
But it's
Snodgrass.
not that we're just coming in now, been working on this for about a year with the, architect, so it's at the point now where it's, they really need to move forward.
So this is not gonna be condominiums, it's gonna be apartments now, correct?
Condominiums.
Condominiums, okay.
They are for sale. I don't
Okay.
know if I would call them condominiums, but they are for sale.
Okay.
Let me ask, if it, for some reason, ends up, taking longer than we think it might take to go through this process, because then we still have to come back with a plan after that. Could we change our plan to be grading only? And does that have to come back to the planning commission? Just trying to figure out a way to get started, just in case it takes longer than we think.
just to kind of more or less brick ground.
Brick ground, start taking up asphalt, changing grades.
So you would be asking for like a demolition permit roughly to get started?
Demo grading permit.
Let me make sure I'm correct on this, and I'll get back with you on, and make sure I'm right, that you may not have, just for the demolition side of things to get started, we may be able to work some things around. But as far as approving the site plan, approving the use, we just gotta get the language fixed real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And if Connor has that by, when do you think you can have that draft?
Tomorrow.
If you can have that drafted and get it to us, we can probably get it on the agenda. Today,
Twenty-sixth.
as long as we get it tomorrow, we should be able to get it on the agenda for one of the next two meetings.
Board Mayor on, I see the second, fourth, 26th. Next Monday.
We'll see what we can do there. I'm not gonna make any promises that it'll be on this next BMA meeting, but we will try to get it on there for you.
Any other questions about it? Any other issues that?
Where are the residences? I was confused about that. Where would were there additional residences? Where are those?
Y'all have in your packet, there's a plan that actually has them. Right there, it shows you exactly where they're gonna go. Because when you look at the plan, you're gonna see the fire hall, you're gonna see the school building, and then there's three lots.
You're standing down at Elm Street, looking at the lower level of the school, with the left-hand side.
Year in the audit, we just got our packet before we, things rushed.
It's the staple one in the back. Elm Street's right there. Yeah, that's it.
So the residences will be here next to where you come off that circle. That would be really fun.
Anybody got any more questions for Todd? Y'all have any more questions for Mr. Wood?
The only thing I would point out as far as the 3 lots, it's on the plan, at the scale you see, you can't read it, but the access, physical access may be from internal. It may not come off of the public streets. It may be an access easement that's on the apartment or condo site.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, moving on, another business discussion, rezone and subdivision, Eastern Egg Home on Butte Avenue, property identified as tax map 023 R3H, parcel 013.01.
Guys, this is something we're just discussing, we're not gonna vote on it. Mr. Freeman is here from Eastern Egg Community Development. Peter's brothers are here.
Here, I want to give you some. We didn't get this in fact. We just.
It doesn't matter, you just got it.
That's hot off the press right there. This is what we're proposing on that property. All right.
So guys, in your packets, I can put you all pictures, and kind of what's.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
What's gonna go there. Um,
So Michael proposed this property to us a few months ago. So we thought, let's just continue the shotgun style home up that lot. And to make it feasible, we thought about splitting that lot in half. We're proposing to bring one driveway off of New Street and then one driveway parked behind our park. Kind of gives a little more green area between the homes. We're still gonna be in the buffer area. We're gonna, we'll have our buffer and setbacks. So, but what I gave you an example of is a plan. We take that plan and it's a modified, we can either put the front porch on like the dark house, or we can modify that plan, put a garage in the front, or we can leave the garage out. So that's just a great 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It'll be sitting on either on a cross base or slab, sitting with a brick foundation. We built a good house, you know. We'll do in-house financing, sales, or if it comes to it, we wanna do rental, we'll do rental, but, you know, we built a quality home. We just wanna start moving into Erwin, start doing infill lots.
What I will say, for these houses right now, that lot's 150 by 150. And it's technically R1, so it only allow one principal building right now. And I think the goal is to have two. To have two, it would not meet the minimum lot size for R1. Minimum lot size for R1 is 15,000 square feet. If he cuts them in half, I think in half they're about 11,250. So I think he is wanting some kind of preliminary confirmation for a rezone to bring this to, you know, and then we'll have to eventually vote on it later. But the way, if it goes into R1A, which I think is the request, the minimum lot size for that's 9,000 square feet.
And our houses are gonna run between 1080 and 1200 square feet. So we're gonna build a decent sized home.
So what this would have, it goes under the same rezone that everything else does. We can make recommendations that we think it's okay. We can vote on it. They can vote on it. Then it goes to one reading of the BMA, then it goes to a second, and all that process takes 30 days for that to happen. So the second hearing is the public notice. That's where everybody that lives on the block, anywhere around, can come and voice any concerns, any questions that they have. So, I mean, we can deliberate it, they can tell you they don't see an issue with it, so on and so forth, if they do. But it's nothing still in concrete until you get that final vote from that public as to how they feel about it. That is the one thing.
Yeah. The dark house that we just finished, we did this on Myrtle Street, Joplin City. It was a city-owned lot. And then it raised that, what they think, 270, right at 270.
That fits in with the style of homes that's already there on the lower end, so it wouldn't be anything that would be going away from there.
And that's what I thought, when we went down the road and we started looking at it, me and Michael just said, we can continue that house right up that street. And then wherever we wanna find, if we can find lots inside the city, it would be great.
And you address the parking issue, because there is an issue on New Avenue, on New Street, yes, with
Yeah, we
parking,
want
so you
all
will
street
have
parking.
that.
Yep. And the lot's big enough with the setbacks, the way we can, you know, the house that sides Park Avenue, we can slide it towards Park, which gives them a little more green area, so we can put a driveway up the right side of the other house.
There is a drainage ditch down there, would that impact anything with your,
It really sits on the lot to the right.
okay,
It's on that far right corner. So, and it comes off that hillside and then it goes under the street. But it's really off way far on the right side.
okay, that's what I was wondering, if that would impact the building.
Cause I've done a lot of work with Eastern Aid over the years, selling materials, working with, seeing all the stuff they've done in Kingsport, seeing a lot of the stuff they've done in Johnson City. Clean operation, they do care about the community, so it's not a, somebody you don't know coming in, they are good stewards to every community they've been in, so I can't speak to that. So. We'll do it, we'll get Connor to put it on the agenda for the next planning commission meeting, that'll be your first reading, and we'll have a 30-day clock on it. All
I
right?
appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up, discussion of new public comment law.
So, starting July 1st, I will have to add a new item on the agenda. It's up to the planning commission where we add it. My recommendation would be either after new business or after other business, either way, but it's required by law now that we have to have a public comment period for people not on the agenda. So, I will have to add that in, so they will have essentially public comment on what's being voted on right then and there.
what's been voted on that day? or-
Yeah, what on new business, so they will, the public will get to, that are not on the agenda will get to comment on our new business.
So then we'll have a PMA meeting where they have 3 minutes.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so it'll be the same thing, but they will get to have comments on new business.
Other boards I've been on, whatever, welcome folks, whatever, then it would have, any comments on non-agenda items.
Yeah, so now this one is gonna be for specifically new business. Cause there's other agendas that have, you know, for people not on the agenda to add themselves to it, essentially. This will be kind of comment on what's currently being discussed on new business. So that's it for that. I mean, I'll just have that added. Now it's you guys' preference on, do you guys want it right after new business and just kind of have that there before other business comes?
If they're only going to comment on new business,
Yeah.
that's probably the best place.
I just want to make sure.
Move that right there, not move it.
All right.
That's all I have for that.
Anything else? I guess not. Thanks, Ron. Right?
Nope.
Right?
Move adjourned.
All right, we're coming. Have a